It's the Benz Brunani womanist. Baby boys, baby girls, you need to hear this. If sit down, receive this realness. Make sure your cup's ready for the tea, we are go sip it, yo. Hard times calling for your long shorts. You might learn something you never know. Collect you fine, and she's one of a kind. Don't say you're mine, say you're mine.
You gon' make a hoe out of me. You know I wasn't going to try that Jasmine. The runs that Jasmine Sullivan does won't be, they will not be attempted by me. Let me let you know what I did do though. The main thing I do on TikTok is follow those rendition, I follow those rendition pages that they play the piano or the guitar or whatever, and then you sing along. And I don't know what possessed me. I think that the heat wave really affected my amygdala, because when I tell you my cerebral cortex was affected, they said, sing along, Whitney Houston, I Have Nothing. And I, Kelechi Oluwafunmilayo Okafor, thought that I could do that shit. It got to the point where I couldn't even like the video. I couldn't like it because I didn't want for there to be an instance that a video like that showed up again to catch me in my delusion, and then I tried to sing along. Share my life. Ooh. Take me for what I am. Ooh. And that's where it stopped. That's where it stopped, because I will not change my vocal cords for you. I can't. I don't really need to look very much further. Ow! I don't want to have to go where you don't follow. I'm holding back again. That's the point where I need to hold back, because when they talk about head voice, chest voice, I had no voice. Which said I have nothing. I had nothing in that vocal range to contribute. So I know myself. Let me stick to my young Shania Twain, my little bits there, because I do not want to play myself, baby. So if you're wondering what you're listening to, what you're watching, it's me, Kelechi, the baby girl in the place to be. I like that. I think I'll keep that. And you are listening / watching SYM, officially known as Say Your Mind, unofficially known as What? That's right, Suck Your Mum. I don't want to waste too much time. I always say that and I go on forever. But I won't be wasting too much time, because there's a long interview. I speak with APEXZERO, wonderful multidisciplinary artist, and we speak for quite a while. Yes. So that will come, when we do Share Your Magnificence. So yeah, I'm just going to try and just get through the other bits. For continuity, I don't know what, I just decided to wear the same outfit. Let me tell you. So this is how, can you see how the episode gets longer and longer and longer when I have a story to tell? So I sat down at my office here to interview Apex. I had another interview. I don't know what happened between my PA and the people. They didn't show, but that wasn't for me to interview them. That was for them to interview me. It was just a mess. Anyway, this reminds me, I think it's Kim. I don't know if you need to check your junk or whatever, but your friends bigged you up at the live show about your podcast and you didn't get in contact, but then my PA contacted you for us to book this in. So do not tarry, do not waste time. Sort it out. But yeah, so I sat down to interview him. Now I know I've been banging gym. Like the shoulders are coming in healthy. Can you see them? I haven't really bothered to work too much on my traps because I can make my traps very, very prominent. But the shoulders are cute. Oh, are they misaligned? I need to go back to yoga. Alignment. These shoulders don't lie. Anyway, I know that I've been banging gym, but let's be serious. Why is it that when I just went to stretch, I snapped the strap of the satin little camisole dress that I was wearing? One of the snaps strapped. One of the straps snapped. So I was then trying to tuck it in. Like now I'm just wearing a bandeau situation, but I was trying to make it into like a bandeau satin dress because like what am I gonna do? And then I looked at the time, and luckily I've been planning my time well enough that I had 40 minutes to spare. So I drove back home, changed my outfit, changed to this because it was very hot. And I just thought for continuity's sake, I'll just wear the same outfit to record today because it's cute. So this is from Dyelab, Dyelab. A lot of these West African brands, like, stop playing with me. A lot of the brands really stop playing with me because I'll be bigging you up and then you'll just be there silent. Like, respect me and respect yourselves. Anyway, that's by the by. They haven't done this. I think the designer started it in 2020 actually. So she's gone from strength to strength since starting it. And I see why. Like, the prints are incredible. So this is like a boob tube top. Which I think technically could be worn as a mini skirt as well. And you can wear it the other way around. So I'm wearing it this way round, but you can wear it the other way round as well. Not inside out, but just back to front. And the trousers are like a little sort of like crop situation. Got my legs out there for you all. I hope my foot back. Oh, I was going to say, I thought my heel back was black. Hey, Chineke, come on, embarrass myself on the podcast. Oh my God. But it feels so lush on the skin. I don't know how long some of you have been listening to this podcast, and I don't know if I've actually said it on this podcast, but I really dislike wearing clothes. I hate wearing clothes. It just doesn't ever feel, it rarely it doesn't feel nice on my skin. So I have to choose materials really carefully. Otherwise, I'm uncomfortable the whole time. And this feels really lovely on my skin. Yeah, the material that they've used feels really lovely on my skin. Love the print. I look so cute. I'm a print babe. Even my nails, Sabrina did my nails. Even my nails have a cute little print on them, like a snake skin vibe. I'm going to change them soon. Some snake skin with gold flakes. Ew. See what I've done? Now it's 7 minutes that have passed just for me to tell you that story as to why I'm wearing this outfit and whatever else. Anyway, let us jump to the tarot before I talk too much. I hope that you've pre-ordered the book, Edge of Here. I hope that you've bought your tickets for the live show in September, the 12th of September. And what else am I doing? I think that's it. for now. I've been actually making progress writing the novel. You'll be so proud of me. And Mercury entered Gemini today, which is my third house of like siblings, mass broadcasting, publishing, all of them things there. So I'm going to be supercharged to write even more. It's really juicy. It is. No, actually, let's be fucking serious. The novel is shaping up to be truly juicy. I am so proud of myself because there were moments where I was like, Kelechi, on my phone people, I want people, you will give them back their money. On my phone money, oh my God, why was that Yoruba so stale in my mouth? I'm so glad my mum doesn't listen to this podcast because she'll be like, there you go again, sounding like an Igbo person speaking Yoruba. But like, I don't want to have to give the money back. So it's a good thing the ideas really started flowing in the way that they have because, child, had to think about the outfit. Okay. Anyway, let me not forget. Why is my mood so buoyant? Why am I so, like, radiant? Is that what you're wondering? It's because of mushrooms, not magic mushrooms. Don't get excited, although a little bit. No. No, I've been drinking reishi mushroom tea. I don't know if I've mentioned it yet. Maybe I talked about it last week and I'm talking about it again. I am so sorry, girl. Reishi mushroom tea. I started drinking it on the recommendation. Maybe I should learn how to speak. On the recommendation of Jeffrey Boadi, I started drinking reishi mushroom tea. I buy the brand called Dirt Tea. Like dirty, DIRTEA. They're not paying me for this. I'm just telling you what I've been drinking. I've been drinking. Woo! I get so excited when that mushroom tea is inside me. Nah. A lyricist is amongst us, and it is me. So I've been drinking reishi mushroom tea initially for my allergies. I ain't crying, I got allergies. Ooh, that song by Tank. A tune. If he wasn't such a colorist. Sorry. That's by the by. Only to discover that reishi actually also helps with balancing out your mood, and helping sort of like to balance out your hormones. So TMI, my menstrual cycle, like my bleed this month actually started 3 days earlier than what my app was saying. And usually, you know, everything's usually accurate or top, like last a day out. But this was like 3 days early. But I feel good. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. I feel like my womb's light. No, yeah, I just feel nice, you know. I have it in the mornings and it's really kept my allergies at bay. But more importantly, I love what it's done for my mood, you know, because bare fuckery agwan. But it's just not affecting me in the same way, where I would usually be like, somebody, like I would want to just dislocate your jaw. I don't really feel like that now. Like when I see people doing wild shit, I'm just like, now you sabi, that is between you and whatever God that you are serving. That's not me, you know. Acting like a dickhead, that's not me. So it's all good. And aside from that, I've also taken up my plant medicine practice. So I'm working with like a plant medicine facilitator currently, and so like we're 1 week in and it feels so good so far. So far, so good. So I'll keep you updated. For legal reasons, I'm not saying anything else. But yeah, it's all going well. As for the retreat, I know that some of you have been asking me about it. Some of you have put your names forward for the ayahuasca retreat. I love your assertiveness. So don't worry, you people who have messaged me already. I know that the others of you will be like, but Kelechi, you said don't message you until it's time. So you shouldn't really honor them messaging you ahead. But some of the people that did message ahead, they're actually really cool people. So I'll keep you updated as to what I'm doing and planning regarding the retreat, because I really want to see if I can, let me not speak out loud. I'm thinking out loud, baby, we have ayahuasca where we are. Another day in the mind of Kelechi. Don't ever call me that. Okay, so I've chosen the tarot letter and let's get straight into it. The tarot letter says, lost at my big age. Hi Kelechi, day 1 listener, first time writer in. Tarot and astrology skeptic turned curious thanks to you. I'm feeling a bit lost, but unlike some of your other correspondents, I'm 37, so not just starting adult life. I'm a first-time mum with a beautiful baby girl who will be turning 1 in the summer. I'm a first-time mum to a beautiful baby girl who will be turning 1 in the summer. I had her after doing a lot of work on myself to manage complex PTSD after a traumatic childhood. I got to a place where I felt I could be a good parent and deserved to acknowledge and fulfill this yearning for a child. And though I have some wobbles, I'm so glad I took this leap. I'm still a work in progress and I have weekly therapy to try to stay well. I've long wanted to try ayahuasca and it's been so interesting to hear your experiences. One day, inshallah. I'm the sole earner in my family as my partner's poor health means he's signed off from work. things have been getting worse for him. So while we thought he would be a stay-at-home dad after my maternity leave ends, it looks like I will need to take an unpaid career break until she qualifies for 3 hours at nursery, as he can't be relied on, relied upon. On the one hand, that's fine, as I really hate my job, but obviously it's going to be tough financially. When I try to picture the future, I draw a blank. I finished a PhD from Oxbridge just before the first lockdown, then fell into work that doesn't require any qualifications, but more importantly, doesn't align with my values. It was supposed to be temporary to pay the bills while I figured out what I wanted to do, as I don't have the stomach for academia. But then I stayed because my partner had to stop working, and inertia, I guess. I was also diagnosed with ADHD around this time, which, along with the complex PTSD, has helped me make sense of why I've made my life so small, just to feel like I can keep my head above water, as I find what's needed for normal day-to-day existence so difficult. One of the ways this has manifested is that I haven't felt like I can cope with having friends. This is due to low self-esteem and trust issues as well. But a big part of it is just the time and logistics involved with feeling like I'm doing right by people I'm in relationship with. I'm not sure if that will make sense to anyone who isn't neurodivergent, and it also speaks to my perfectionist tendencies, I suppose. Anyway, it means I feel quite isolated, especially because I don't have much contact with my family of origin if I can help it. All this to say, I'm lacking direction and inspiration in a big way. I feel lost and stuck. My focus is my daughter right now, but I want to guard against making her my whole world, as that's too much pressure on her and doesn't model the full life that I want her to feel she can have. I'd also just like to have fun and joy for myself, so my caring responsibilities after being a parentified child don't make me a resentful husk. I'd be so grateful for any light you can shed. And thank you for sending your things. I'm an Aquarius sun, Gemini moon and rising. Ooh, so all these planets, the sun is in your first house now. Mercury is in your first house now. Also a projector in human design. Yeah, so you weren't meant to be working. You weren't meant to be working. Projectors are meant to guide, basically, like consult. So the first thing before I even touch the cards is that you need to consider consultancy roles, not something where you're like employed by someone and you're there and you're locked into one dega 9 to 5. Not to say that 9 to 5 is dega for everybody, but I'm just saying that for you and your build, your type, that is not going to work for you. And Gemini rising, of course, you love to write, of course. And Mercury now being in Gemini in your first house would probably be a good time to get some feelers out there, really start to type, interact, communicate with people about roles, consultancy roles. Like, you didn't go and do a PhD for nothing. Yeah, so let the thing that you're doing align with the thing that you gave your heart and soul to for so many years. Like, let it make sense. So anyway, let's look at the cards. I've ordered a new case for my MacBook, and it's so blingy. I can't wait for it to arrive. So anyway, let's get into the cards. The first deck I'm going to use is the Spiritual Seasoning. Why do I love saying that? I love that deck. I think I need to bring it back out. I'm using the Dickhead Affirmations for a Dickhead in Recovery card deck. That's the one that I'm using for you. Let's get into it. Everything technologically is just doing what it likes today, so I'm not even going to bother trying to connect the camera back, because the camera is just frozen on a screen. Like, it's moving. It's like real time when I'm looking at the camera monitor, but on this app today, or the software I'm using, it doesn't want to cooperate. And I can't come and kill myself is the MO. So what is the card that we get for you first? Oh, it says here, I invite passion into every aspect of my life, a passion that moves me to become the greatest manifestation of myself. You can't even really see that clearly at all. That is a word, because the main thing here that we know that is lacking is passion. And I feel that from, your husband's condition and everything else that you've got going on, I can imagine that with all these responsibilities and working and being the sole earner, it can feel probably very tense, giving into passion and being like, oh, you created your daughter. But I just feel like sometimes creating the child is way more fun than like raising the child. Can I get an amen? So I can imagine that you're just feeling a lot of that tension right now as well. So the first thing to do is to just ignite passion. I don't know what you like in terms of hobbies, but for a projector, I would say something to do with your sacral area. So it would probably be good for you to, if you're into that sort of thing, maybe consider, oh, that card came back again. Dance classes, something like that. I'm just looking at the cards that are coming out for you. Yeah. The first card that you've got, which I think is beautiful, is the Star card. So I'm using the This Might Hurt tarot deck. So let me put it this way before Jonathan cusses me. So the Star card, which speaks of healing, and that's a major arcana card, as well as the Seven of Wands, where they've got all of these wands or that have been made into spears pointing at them, and they're just holding kind of like a bow and arrow, ready to attack. And then we've got the Three of Cups in reverse, which shows people like celebrating and having a great time. And it came out for you in reverse because ultimately, before you even start thinking about, what do I do? The feeling of feeling lost is based on you just not feeling ignited sensually. We often forget about the power of the erotic, our erotic power, the place that we create from, not just in terms of creating life in that regard, but just creating from. And usually when people talk about, oh, I've got writer's block, or I've got this, or I don't know where to go next, it's because they've become out of alignment, which you mentioned in your letter as well, with their erotic energy. And because of the way that the erotic energy, I guess, is shamed in modern society, it means that people don't consider it to be a genuine condition, like, oh, it's a genuine thing that's an issue. But it is. If your erotic power is kind of stagnant or can't be tapped into or is dormant, you won't feel like doing much. You won't. And it's important for that to be ignited in you. So what do you like in terms of like fantasies? It sounds like I'm taking you somewhere random, but I'm really not. What do you like in terms of like sexual fantasies? Because I would say, just getting my other card deck, I would say that that's where we need to begin. What do you enjoy before you start worrying about like, friendships and having time for friendships and all your responsibilities? Like, what do you enjoy? What ways do you pleasure yourself? Because a life without pleasure, I don't know what we're doing then. I don't know why we're here then. It's important. The card that you get from the Wisdom of the Oracle card deck is Round and Round. Round, round, baby, round, round, got a line on me. I don't need nobody, got my fits for free. I don't know the lyrics, but I think that she says, I don't need nobody, get my... Look, that was a spiritual word. It's those of you who know the lyrics will be like, Kelechi, this is what she said. And you'll be like, exactly, that's what I said. That's what I said. That's what I said. Number 25, I was going to say time for a nap. I think that's what Spirit's telling me. 25, Round and Round, essential meanings. The spiral quality of events when a lesson isn't quite integrated. Cycles you are challenged to break. Revisiting a pattern from a new perspective. Woo, woo, woo. Isn't that a word? When you talk about being a parentified child, right? I, as somebody who was a parentified child, all you know is duty and responsibility. You don't even know how to factor in what you like, who you are, like what makes you happy. So then you gravitate in adult life towards situations and gang, like you're 37, I'm 36. I'm going to be 37 this year. And so I also think that you are going through your nodal return, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you might be going through your nodal return as well, but I'll double check that. But the main thing here is that we gravitate towards situations where relationships and love to us always mean duty and responsibility, and we rarely stop to be like, do I even like this? Like, do I want to be here? Like, outside of making sure that everybody's okay and essentially fixing people and trying to ensure that the world doesn't crumble under other people's feet, we're there kind of tiptoeing on a cliff's edge, right? And it's about bringing yourself back from there, taking a rest, letting other people worry about other people. Obviously, you've got a child, so you've got to like consider your child. And I understand the apprehensions about having to then leave work in order to, and then not knowing what's going to happen financially. And I know this is going to sound mad woo-woo, right? But I promise you, if you can tap into your erotic energy, you will find a way to have money coming in. They are interlinked. They are, because everything around us is energy, is frequency. And even if we're talking about just purely scientific, if that's what you want to call it, allowing yourself space to consider who you are, what you like, and to pleasure yourself will create space, or give you access to space in your mind where you can start thinking in the abstract about what you can actually maybe do from home, right? That generates an income, and then you're fine. And this is also why I'm suggesting to you consultancy, because consultancy, you don't have to be going in, out, shake it all about. Like, you don't have to be. You can work from where you are. So bear that in mind. Or a type of consultancy where you're helping other people with their studies and they pay you, I don't know, to look over their research, to look over their essays. I don't know, but there are so many things that will be possible once you tap into what it is that you like. So the Oracle's message says, the appearance of this card is a reminder that although it may appear that you've gone backwards, the truth is that you are standing at a higher level, looking down into your circumstances. You will learn something, do something better, and break a cycle set up in the past. You actually have a bird's eye view of your initial footprints and can access the wisdom and lessons learned. So that's good for you. Prosperity message says, if you are in a scenario that appears to be an echo of something that's already happened in the past in your work life, it's because you're being invited to see what you couldn't see before. This is a perfect time for you to look at the deeper motives you have and your attraction to the opportunities and people who have entered your life to be part of your journey to prosperity. Who helps you navigate? Who sabotages you? Who supports you? What are the familiar signs and your responses to them when you find yourself in a repeat of a pattern of the past? It's a good time to get a coach or mentor who can help you see what you can't on your own. Repeat what works, not what doesn't. Then you will free yourself from the old cycles and cease going round and round. I feel like that's the message for you, right? I pray that resonates. Don't want to just be chatting forever like a chatter. But yeah, I'm sending you all of the love, and I'm practicing that now, like stopping when the messages stop for me, even in one-to-one readings, just like. But I pray that resonates with you and anybody else who's listening who finds themselves in a similar situation. So we'll jump at this point to my interview with APEXZERO, and I hope that you enjoy our chat. We chat about everything, but really, who are we? Literally, just what the tarot cards were kind of alluding to. Who are we beyond the struggle that we've become like identified as throughout our lives, like generationally, like societally, like who are we beyond that? But yeah, enjoy it. Apex Zero, thank you for joining me.
Be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's sick. It's sick. Like, we were on a panel or like a roundtable thing with Shazal years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know truly like what came of it, but I know that, you know, hopefully it'll be something that we can take out more to the masses soon. But I really enjoyed hearing you speak when we did that, you know, and so it's great to be connecting now, especially to talk about more so about your creative work. So yeah, I just thought that that would be a great place to start. So we've got Drummer Warrior, Storyteller Part 2, and this is a visual album.
Yeah.
And so you had part 1, but what inspired you to say that this is what I want to do? Because I know that you mentioned that Chinua Achebe, and you know, and that's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite thinkers. R.I.P. One of my absolute favorite thinkers, writers, everything, because he kind of rooted us in the kind of West African experience specifically, and he talks about liberation in a way that didn't move necessarily away from the past, where he was like, we've got to think about where we're going from here. We can't just stay in this space. And you kind of talk about that, like, yes, we struggled, we have struggled, we continue to struggle in certain regards, but what are we imagining for ourselves beyond this? So it would just be great for you to share about that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One, I remember that talk as well. Like, before I talk about drama, like, I tell people about that a lot, because that was the first time I met you, and I'd heard of you, and I hadn't really seen a lot of your stuff. But like, I left that conversation. You know, normally you do things like that, and I leave a lot of them conversations tired. Do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
sort of like, they're long, so much of the time. And you feel like, even if most people are on the same kind of tone, it doesn't always necessarily go that way, and you have to have some kind of disagreement, or some kind of something will
Yeah.
happen. And I remember just leaving that talk, everyone that Chazelle had assembled was just like fire, but not, and even if there were things that we didn't necessarily see eye to eye on, it felt like a productive and constructive conversation. And then to see like where you've gone on and the things that you've done, and you know, I certain times don't have to speak about things because you're out there doing it for us publicly. I mean, I can just refer people to you, you know.
Thank
So like,
you.
be here to talk about these things, like, it means a lot, man. And just sort of like, you've carried that way of being into everything that you've done since I've known you, you know. And so,
Thank you. Yeah.
but I think like that kind of speaks to the piece as well, because I felt like for such a long time when I was younger, like, we're raised here in such a way where we're just constantly battling, you know, like it's a fight to exist here as we do, you know. And it's not to say that like I'm done with that, or to say that, like, you know, that happens to us regardless. Whether however you feel about it, at some point you're going to be confronted with having to be in that, you know, to acknowledge that fight, you know.
Yes.
And but one thing that's become really important to me, and Chinua Achebe was really central to that, was as you said, like, I want that feeling that we got from that roundtable to be the way that my work makes people feel. You know, I
Yes.
spent a long time being like, we need to shed light on these things. We need to like bring things to the fore. We need to let people know. We need to keep burning this fire and keep the fire burning, and
Yeah.
and that's important, right? But a lot of the time, I think it's become really acknowledged, especially since 2020. But definitely, a lot of people were acknowledging it long before that. That like, you don't necessarily want to go to arts and culture and music to constantly be feeling that feeling. You know, a lot of the
Yes.
time you do those things to not necessarily escape, but to feel good. You know what I mean? And to feel like, yeah, I'm you know, I get a holiday from that through this work, and I can, you know, it's cathartic and stuff like that. And as well, as much as like, you know, work that burns a fire can be that and is that, I felt like a lot of my life I've made that music and I've made that work, you know, and I felt like I was at a place in my life, having come to terms with certain things I've been through, that I want to make work and give people experiences that they walk away feeling nourished from,
Yeah.
feel better about themselves and their life, and about the future, and not just being like, because a lot of us know, I think I'm at an age now where a lot of us know what the problem is, you know, and we
Yes.
know what the situation is, and largely we know what needs to be done. We might not have the means to do it. We, you know, so telling people this is the problem, this is what's going on, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. Like, why am I just keep telling people that? Whereas trying to be like, you know, this is what's happening, but also this is what it can be. This is what we can strive for. Like, this is the world I want to see now. Not even like, one thing that really frustrates me is when people say like, and I get why people say it, and I've said it, like, I want to do this for the next generations, and we're always doing it for the next generation. But if we don't strive to do it now, it will just fall on them to do. If we can try to do as much as we can now, then it falls on them to build the world, as opposed to theorize what the world might be and expose the problems,
That's so true. I think that I'm similar. Whenever people say like I might not see the change in my lifetime, I'm like, are you trying to die tomorrow? Like, because like I find it such a. I get, again, like you say, I get why people say it, because they're thinking of the long term. But fam, I also want to see small. I also want to see like what we're doing. I also want to see. I also want to experience part of it. I'm not just gonna do this tireless work and be like, oh well, deuces, and not really see how it panned out. But as you say, of course we're thinking about the future generation, but I think it's almost that selflessness that means that the urgency is removed sometimes. Right. And it's like, for it to be urgent, we also want to see it now. Why can't it be now? Because 2020, again, I loved how you documented 2020 through photography and just, being the multidisciplinary creative that you are. Because we saw change. We saw change quickly in 2020 when everybody gathered en masse and said, like, we're not happy with this. We don't like how this is going. Things were changing. Like, people who are experiencing homelessness, they got places to sleep. So that was possible all along. That was literally possible all along, but you just didn't want to do it. So I looked at things like that and I thought, so that means we can have the change now. So who has allowed us, or who has forced us to buy into the myth that it's just not possible? And so I love your, this work that you, this seminal piece of work that you put together, because it is kind of like, well, it's definitely, let's use our imaginations. And this is something I'm always talking about on the podcast as well. Like, the whole point of this system is that we're so tired that we can't imagine. And if we can't imagine, then we'll keep going with what already is, because we can't think or dream of better.
Yeah, completely that. It's completely that. And that tiredness, in 2020, that I thought that Toni Morrison speech kept coming back up, right? Where she talks about the purpose of racism is to keep you distracted from your actual works, right? And like, I love that quote. I love the whole speech that she gives there. And it's as you said, so much got done, and I think also people were very quick to kind of, and again, there's reasons, but with stuff like the BLM movement, that I think people don't acknowledge enough that didn't stop then, right? There was years of work done building up to that, and the organization has its critics for many reasons and things like that, but that doesn't represent all of the work being done, right? And so much work had been done up to that point. And what I felt in that moment was, as a result of the mass gatherings and all of the stuff that wasn't documented on the news and the TV, and the people you were having to battle constantly in the public sphere weren't mentioning because they don't know and they don't care, right? Was that I noticed, as a result of all of that work, that now when I go into certain spaces, I say certain things, the instant reaction of people who don't experience isn't, oh no, well, but do you know what I mean? It was okay. Like, maybe they get it a bit now. Do you know what I mean? And maybe now we forwarded the conversation to the point where not just that action is possible, action's always been possible, but that we don't have to constantly be repeating that lowest base level of demonstrating that we experience this now. And that is change. That is legitimate and real change. I don't think anyone actively said or believed that movement in itself, or the stuff being done behind it, was the revolution and everything's now fixed and everything's going to be changed. No one said that. No one actually believes that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That was just a watershed moment where now a shift has been made in the mindset of most people in this country and arguably other countries. I think that's deeply important to acknowledge.
Definitely.
While also acknowledging that it's not the end of the story and it's not the end of the fight, And as you said, like, I've also noticed, though, what we 3 years after now, or 3 years after 2020 specifically, that things are starting to actively slide
Back. Yes.
You know what I mean? Because now we're not all forced to be in our homes, right? We've had some rest. Well, some of us had some rest. Do you know what I mean? And I think especially disabled people got some of the things that they needed, right? And now that it doesn't affect everybody else, it's starting to be taken away from those who need it the most, you know? And I think that can be said for any of the intersections that people bring to these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think somebody referred to it as the great regression. Anytime we take anytime we take like one step forward or two steps forward, we're going to take 30 or 20 steps back. It happened with the Obama administration. For a lot of people, that was progress, right? And so what they had to do to retaliate was vote in Trump. They wanted to go all the way back, because anytime it feels like, oh, no, let's wheel it back. And so that's really interesting, the fear of change, the fear of shaking up the kind of status quo. But it's one of the lyrics, one of the verses that kind of stood out to me was when you said conversation is action. I love that so much, because I get a bit pissed off sometimes when you're trying to have a valid conversation online, create discourse online, whatever the case may be, and somebody goes, well, why are we still talking about it? Why aren't we doing anything? And it's like...
Yeah. Well, how are we going to do something? How are we going to do something about talking about what we're going to do? And then also, if and when we have just been doing something, that same person's there going, oh, well, that wasn't right.
Right.
You know,
we should have talked about it first.
We should have planned. You know, but also that person's always going to be there wherever. But I got to the point, and that's why, like, I commend you so much in the energy that you have to be constantly on these platforms fighting. Yeah,
thank you.
Is because I have largely given up that form of fighting, because I got to the point where I dropped. I wasn't ever as active as you. I have to really acknowledge that as well. It's never been my forte. You know, them ones, and you do it so well, and others do it so well, and I don't do it as well. And so I got to learn what I can do well, right? But I got into back and forth with someone about these things, and you know, it's so easy to just react constantly, especially when, like, I'm sure you must get thousands of comments, and you have to not look at them all, right? But I'm not that, right? So I just got into one back and forth with this dude, and I hit the thing, and I was like, you know what, let me actually see who this is. You know what I mean? And it was just some random any brer from Midwest America. Like, why do I care what this brer thinks? Do you know that one? Like, to spend my energy talking to him about something he knows nothing about.
Yeah.
You know that one? Like, you know what? And then the worst thing about that as well, they might not even be real people. They might just be.
That is what we really, really have to deep as we move forward as a collective, is understanding that you can spend 5 hours arguing with a bot. You are arguing with AI, and you are helping the AI to become even more intelligent, because you're giving it points, you know, you're giving it counterpoints, and counter arguments. So we're making the opposition stronger by arguing. If I say, you know, racism is pervasive, black women are 4 to 5 times more likely to die during childbirth in comparison to white women, and you come and like, why are we making everything about race? I'm not answering you. Because what? And it's exactly what you said about the Toni Morrison quote. It is distraction. Our life force is so powerful across the African diaspora. Like, our life force is so powerful. They wouldn't have been able to build entire empires without it, right? So now to waste it arguing with George Bob 137089999, like, what?
Well, it's exactly that. Like, and especially if they're a bot, and especially if they're AI. But then even then, I feel like as well, like, some people are just having a laugh. They're just having a laugh, fam. Like, they don't care. They don't care that much. And even if they are a real person, they're you know, that the term troll became a thing for a reason. It's kind of, again, been turned into something else. But like, people just have a laugh, and it's just like, oh, look how wound up they're getting.
Simple.
You know, and so but that conversation. But again, it's like, I also get deeply frustrated by the piss poor level of debate and conversation on the internet. And I think that for all of its wonderful things that it does for the world and has done and enables people to do certain things, and we create spaces and we create platforms, someone like you has been able to do what you do to the extent that you do because of it. in general, the level of discourse is absolutely shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
And it's
so,
getting worse. It's
yeah,
getting worse. And
yeah,
so even people like myself are like, okay, I'm moving the conversation offline. Like I'm moving
mm,
it elsewhere,
mm,
having conversations such as these on my podcast or writing a book or in like in terms of what you've done, in terms of your creative pieces, like we're taking the conversation offline because
yeah,
it can't survive there. It's a cesspit. So
yeah,
yeah, and you're trying to give these gems, you're trying to like, and somebody wants to come and derail the conversation, or they're
mm,
just not at a level of understanding that would make that conversation or
right,
that discourse conducive. So why again, our energy, our life is so precious. Why
mm-hmm,
would we want to spend it in that way? Like, as much as I understand this sort of evangelism to a certain degree, where people are like, oh, you have to go out there and get the people who don't understand and bring them in. Okay,
mm,
for a minute though, can I just chill with the people who do understand and
yeah,
build from there?
yeah. And we will build something of worth. And as a part of that thing that we're building, if you genuinely care, if you're not the person who is
Mm.
just having a laugh or whatever else they're trying to achieve, you can come. I think that's the thing
Mm-hmm.
that people like. You can come to this thing, and that's where we'll have the conversation. And I think
Yeah.
that's why with the project, like that's one of the big things I'm trying to do, and that's why it kind of in many ways is kind of contrary or counter, like it's not on trend. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not gonna try and go on that I invented the idea of a visual album. It's been done. It's being
Mm-hmm.
you know. I've started calling it now a living album. You know what I mean? Because the thing
Okay.
is constantly going and it's constantly growing and changing and developing and a big part of it. So the film, if you sit and watch one of the films, that's the album. If you listen to the music alone, that's the album. If you come to a film screening, if you look at the pieces of work that have come out of it, that's the album.
Yeah.
And when we set it up to its fullest extent, um, we put the whole exhibition on. We have the music playing, so you're in the universe of the album,
That's
and
beautiful.
within that universe of the album, we have conversations. So as
Yes.
much as I can, um, I try to not just show a film and it's done,
Mm.
and it's also not just like here is the panel, we're the experts, you lot listen. It's a
True.
it's
It's a
a round table with
conversation.
everyone
Yeah.
in the space.
Yeah.
So if you want to come and learn, and you've been inspired by the work to come and have a conversation, please come. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
If you're going to raise a contrary counterpoint and you need to, you want to come in and start shouting at us and whatever else, like there's consequences to that, but you can come and do it. Innit? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think I've had to really learn. And
Mm.
people like my sister, like Janine Francois in particular, we did a hip hop reading group together. That was starting and it just hit when COVID hit. Like we just started it and had to go online. But like I've had to be educated largely by black women about safe spaces again, because I'm coming from a very militant background of just being
Yeah.
like, we burn the fire and whoever gets burned. And that
Yeah.
can't be the way we do it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I've had to learn that. And so through being taught and learning, I'm also like, no, like we have to prioritize the people in the spaces who
Yes.
need to be protected and are there to be not to be protected, but are there to be able to be themselves candidly. That's the
Yes.
priority, right? But other people are also welcome, but you ain't the forefront of
You're not the
this.
priority here. You are
No.
not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so ask your questions, that's fine, but you will also be shut down. You will also be dealt with. You will also be, but again, I'm having to really try to learn that that's also from a place of care for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't come in there and just be shouting your mouth off and all that, because also not everyone's as nice as us. And that's what we saw in 2020, like all the battles being fought on the road, like, and like, I think it's also really important to keep stressing the point that, racism as a phenomenon is often pegged on the poor white people as the problem, but they
Mm.
didn't invent this thing.
No.
It didn't come about accidentally. It wasn't was a consequence of circumstances. Like
Mm-mm.
people sat down over centuries and have designed this thing, and it's not because they're uneducated. They're the most educated
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
people who
Yeah.
have done this, right? They've designed this thing, and arguably a victim of that is those poor white people who are given this thing, be like, this is your weapon to use because you've got nothing else, because we've taken it from you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so then people come into our spaces and start shutting their mouth off. I'm trying to make it so that my first instinct isn't I gotta shut them down. It's you should be on our side.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
not right now, but you should be. And if I can try to approach it in that way, there's an Audre Lorde quote that she says something about that difficult process of having to try to clap back at, she's talking about women in particularly, but
Yeah.
white women who try to shut her down over years, right? Of acknowledging the potential allies and the true allies that we have grave difference and our actual
Yes.
enemies,
Yes.
right? And that
Yes.
distinction is incredibly important to me.
So important. So important. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that, especially as Black people who have been through so much, not being able to use the power of discernment to be like, okay, this could possibly work here. This dynamic could work. We're not talking about hashtag not all. We're simply saying that beyond the labels and the ways and the constructs that we know each other and we've been ascribed our places in society, there are people who are willing to break those bounds and to jump out of whichever box that they've been put in if they're shown that, hey, you're in a box, and some of the most brilliant thought leaders throughout the centuries have pretty much said what we're saying now. Like, first of all, realistically, we're not doing this alone. We're not. And so when you're able to let, especially working class white people, see that, hey, the game is rigged against you too. They're going to use you as the fodder and then you're out of here. And then they continue doing what they're doing. So you're thinking about the wrong enemy. Like you're not thinking in the right way. And ultimately, I think that especially what you've articulated there is what shifted my MO. It's what shifted kind of like my energetic center during lockdown when I started making the videos and they started reaching out to more people, because I got to that point where I was just like, I need you all as working class white people to also understand what I'm saying to you. White women also, I need you to understand. So, rest in peace, Sarah Everard. When that happened, I was like, can you see, white women, what we've been telling you about police? Can you see? So rather than going, ha, 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 look, you didn't know. It's like, hey, now let's try and weave all of these things together because they're not separate threads, So, I totally agree.
I think that's such an important point. And again, I'm really mindful of like not using a space like this to look like I'm just criticizing our people, because like we're here to celebrate our people.
Yeah.
One thing that really frustrated me was with the whole anti-Asian hate thing, right? And like, bro, I don't think anyone is ever suggesting that there aren't anti-black racist Asian people. Of course there are. We've experienced it. You know them ones, like. But when a man walks into a space and murders Asian women for being Asian, and then the discourse is about how he was, he did it because he was being tempted by their sexiness. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I'm seeing my people, and bear in mind as well, like people have, with George Floyd and everything attached to it, and however, with all of the things, there are always Asian people backing us. Always. You know what I mean? Like, and when they show up for us, it's disgusting to hear people then say, oh, well, they're racist too. What? Do you know what I mean? Like, and so that attitude you just displayed there about the ha ha ha, like, that can't be what it is.
No,
and
it can't be a gotcha.
And as frustrating as it can be, when you're showing up for other people and other people with different intersections and they don't show up for you, that doesn't then give you carte blanche to just be like, well, ban them all. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't make what's being done to them any less wrong. And and really importantly on that point, like like when we can, like, it's also the same with progress, right? So again, like the anti-Asian hate bills that are being passed and stuff like that, right? That doesn't mean that we've missed out on something. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, there's been 500-700 years of us being violently, murdered by these systems, right? But if another set of people gain some level of, progress in their fight, there's not a finite amount of justice for everyone that we're all fighting over, which is what we're often set up to believe, right?
In a capitalist system that all resources are finite.
Right. Yeah. And so if someone else is like, we should be celebrating that, and we should be saying like, right now there's a precedent, right? And so now this is the work that needs to be done in that vein, and you lot can also come and back us. And when that doesn't happen, that's something to then be called.
I hear you. Yeah.
And yeah, I just completely agree with you. It's important. It infuriates me when I see that being done, and I think it also infuriates me so much because I've also done that in the past. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean? And I think
same, same.
right. And this is the thing that I think, like, when we got talking about to anyone sort of learning and growing, and like you said, we're picking up on things that people have been saying for centuries. Is that I've had to go through the learning, fam. Like,
Yes.
don't ever think that I come out. But you can find me at this point in my life when I'm doing this kind of work,
Mm.
and I deliberately leave my other work out there in the world. I don't try to erase what I've done because I've said and done fucked up, horrible shit.
Yeah,
Do you know
yeah,
them ones? Just straight up. Do you
yeah,
know them ones? Like, I have done that,
yeah.
and I should be held accountable to that. Do you
Mm.
know what I mean?
Mm.
And when someone comes at me and says, "Well, how can you be saying what you're saying now when you also said this?"
Mm-hmm.
It's my responsibility to say, "You're correct. I did do that. It was
Yeah,
wrong, and I've grown." Do you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Mm.
And so that's why I try to, in the same way that lots of black women, that lots of queer people, that lots of other people have come to have embraced me as someone who has done these fucked up things
Yeah.
to their people. Do you know what I mean? Intentionally or not, trained or not. And that's why I love the conversation you had recently with the writers of Mandem, right? About the
Yes, yeah,
experience of
yeah.
what it is to be a black man in this country.
Yeah.
Like, we are trained to be a certain way.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's not
Yes.
coincidental. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? And so, but it's also, as much as it's a reason, it's not an excuse.
You
You know what I mean?
that is the word.
And once you know, do better, right? Once you know better, do better,
Do
Maya
better,
Angelou,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm trying to do better. And so if someone is coming to one of our spaces, they've already made a step to try to do better.
Yes.
So I'm not just going to turf them out and say, "Das, this isn't for you." It's like, okay, we'll come in and learn, innit?
Yeah.
And I think this type of work is, what I'm trying to do and what I know that you're doing is learn and grow and become better at what we do to have actual fruitful progress made in the world. And conversation is one of the many, many parts that
It's
needs
so true.
that needs to take place.
And it's so true. And because without it, what do we do? And we don't know everything. And that journey that you speak about, I talk about on this podcast a lot about being a dickhead in recovery. Like, there is so much that I'm still unlearning. There is so much growing still to be done. And sometimes I can think back to things that I used to think and be like, yuck, but it's through the love of other people, the grace of other people that allowed me to grow. So why would I deny that to somebody else? And so all of that is rooted in love. And I think that that's what's so transformative about the journey that you've been on, and thus the work that you've now created. I really, really enjoy that. So in a sentence, really, based on, because everything we've been talking about today is essentially about love. It's essentially about loving ourselves, loving others, and being able to move forward, like wanting to loving our future, loving our present and loving our future so much, and the future generation so much, that we're willing to do the gritty work now and thinking about different ways that we do that work. But for you, how would you encapsulate the idea of love in one sentence?
That's such a difficult question.
Couldn't end it with that one.
I think, well, okay, I have to say as well, like, I hear what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing. It's not to push back on what you're saying, but it's like I'm also trying to get out of the habit of reducing things to things like one sentence. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think complexity and time and care are also
Definitely.
evidence of that love. Like, if you actually care about something, you don't just reduce it to, you look at it in its complexity and all of its.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So, with that said, I will try. And I think that love is, it's a reverence for being.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I think reverence, I think, is one of the journeys that I've been on through this, and I think it's also really important to acknowledge, like, the multiplicity of the journey. It's like, it's not one single journey, right?
It's many paths. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to say a lot, and I think when I was learning about Pan-African philosophy, theory, however you want to call it, the action, the struggle, all these things, the idea of that, ancestor reverence as a thing that we do. I think I understood it academically. I think that's something that we do historically. I don't think I ever really truly did it. Do you know what I mean? And I think I've got to the point now where I the reverence that I have for my ancestors is deep, you know.
Yes.
And like I
Yes.
said, because having lived through some things now, you know, you can be young and you can want to be that kind of deep person and want to be that, you know, you want to model yourself on a Huey or Angela Davis or whoever, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and you can't be them without having gone through some shit. And I've
Mm-hmm.
been through some shit, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so now I'm here on the other side of it. Like, what I have been through pales in insignificance compared to what our ancestors have had to go through
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
over, you know, throughout this time. What one of my elders, Amwale, he writes in one of his books, about how in the scale of who we are as a people, as African people, right? Um, never mind as a human people, as the forebearers of
Yeah.
that and the precursors of that, that horrible thing we had to go through and are going through, this moment we're going through, is a tiny dot in the history of our people, right?
Yes.
And so what they had to go through, the reverence that I feel and the love and the care for appreciating what they have survived in order for me to even be here,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Is love. But then all of the things that came before that moment, it's unfathomable what
Yeah.
we've done to people. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And that's why we're still here. That's why through all of it, we can't be destroyed. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because we create. It's what we do,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And to me, like, reverence of all of that is love.
Yeah.
And that, and I think also because of the journey I'm on, the acknowledgement that our ancestors aren't some distant people, right?
No.
We are them. We are them.
Yes. Yes.
They are us. The next generations that come are also those ancestors,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
literal, and it's not even just like, you know, it's not like, I try not to think of it in this like reincarnation thing of like I was here and then I came back. We are just one huge continuation of the
Yes.
same.
Energy
Yes.
can't be destroyed. It just carries on and changes form, but it's still there all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's you know, that is when we talk of love of self, if there is no distinction between me, ancestors, future
Mm.
generations, and then arguably, you know, you want to extend that further, each other,
Yeah.
all people, all beings, all things.
Mm.
Um, love for self is love for others.
Yes.
It's all the same thing. You know what I mean? And it's like, why am I gonna do actively try to seek to do harm to somebody else when in doing harm to them, I'm doing harm to myself?
Yeah, you can't truly love yourself if you're out there seeking to actively harm other people.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about, because some people are like, but what about revenge? But even then, but we're not even having that conversation. We're just talking like
Mhm.
generally speaking. But the
Mhm.
way that you describe it about love is a reverence of being, I think is just beautiful, because it literally is, whether we're talking about, you know, that sort of our ancestral connections and us being future ancestors and things like that. And also just reverence for being, existing, being, continuing to be, you know, not performing, not trying to be, just simply being. One of my friends said to me recently that love is acceptance. So when you say that love is a reverence of being, I think that they're intertwined in that way, like to just allow,
Mm.
for you to exist, for others to just be. That is love, because it's so hard when we're taught in a society to control, to take power, to control power, to manipulate all of these things, to accept and to revere the magnitude, the expanse of just being,
Mm.
and how that choreography, that beautiful dance that we all do to make space for the beings of others, is wonderful. So I'm really grateful that you shared that with us today.
No, I appreciate. Honestly, I just feel very, very privileged and blessed and honored to be given opportunities to talk like this with people like you. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you.
And that reverence of my being. Like, I felt like this project has really taught me that, like, this is what I'm here to do. This is the
Mm,
purpose of my life. You know, I come off
mm,
the stage with the big show we done in October at Rich Mix, and I have to shout out everyone involved. There's too many people involved to shout out personally,
mm,
but everyone who knows who they are, they was involved, and that includes everyone who came. Do you know what I mean? Who came and just
mm.
was a part of that space. I stepped off the stage and was just like, this is what it was all for, like all of the pain and all of the struggle and all of the, endurance, but then also all of the skills learned, all of the compassion, all of the joys and the wonderful things that have happened. All of that has led me to this point to be able to be like, this is the type of work I want to share with the world. This is the mark I want to leave on this space. And I think that's also like as you said, but this training we have, this of the take of mine, it's me, it's that, like to let them things go is a wonderful blessing, And I learned, I got that from my brother Natty. I have to always shout him out and talk about him. He took us out to the Amazon to spend time with the Piaroa people, Hatoya people of the Piaroa, and did this Yopo ceremony. This is a deeply ancient, powerful ceremony of learning that reverence. And I feel like, again, I think academically, this idea of oneness and these other things, I kind of could think about it, but that I left that experience, and that's in Seventh Dimension, one of the tracks on the project, the first one, too. That's what that was about, of leaving that space. And I left that space with a completely renewed understanding of what life is to me and maybe what it is in general. And it left me with this sense of viewing the world as like one giant fabric, that we're all just a part of this fabric, and I don't gain anything from ripping that fabric. I don't gain anything from trying to squash someone else out of that fabric, and again, my revenge, it's a legitimate thing. It's a legitimate sense of feeling when someone's done these things to you, but you inevitably you hurt yourself in achieving. There's so many stories over the years, and again, like, these stories are also used in a way to stop us from feeling like we can take or should take action, right? And I think it's always important to evoke Fanon in this space and in this conversation, that in no way, in its sense, I think either of us saying that you should be meek and you should just
never,
right? And so there's a difference in not being meek. There's a difference in defending yourself and standing up for yourself against absolute violence. And taking revenge. They're not the same thing.
No.
Like, again, like what Audre Lorde says about like her response to racism is anger. Like I've waited years to read or someone tell me that it's okay to be angry about it. They're constantly saying, you're not angry. That's passion.
It's love. And it's like, no, I'm angry. I'm furious.
Because if someone's out here trying to murder my children and murder my family, like, I should be angry.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's legitimate. But that's not the same thing as revenge.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's because the thing is happening now. We are defending ourselves constantly.
And then we usually take the anger and do something with it. Like I can take the anger and be like, oh, this is how you're trying to infringe on my personhood and my livelihood and my family. All right, block. Like, you start doing things, and because you might need to disarm people sometimes in whatever that means to the individual. But I love that you mentioned this, that we are all part of one fabric, because that's when when I mention the threads and things like that, because that is similar to what I experienced when I went to Peru and went to take part in the ayahuasca ceremonies, that I came back with so much lighter yet grounded in my purpose, that the purpose is always unfolding also to find comfort in the uncertainty that I felt before. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I don't need to know, because I'm so loved and I'm trusted. The maddest thing is to feel deeply that I'm trusted on this path, that I will do what is necessary to manifest or to bring forth in the physical realm that which needs to be, that which is necessary. And before, I think maybe there was the nerves about, but I'm not doing what the next person's doing. And, you need numbers, you need this, because again, that's how we're taught. Like, you need the external validation. When you talk about reverence for ancestors, when you talk about going deeply within and understanding being part of one fabric, understanding also that I'm just one thread then. So I can't do the work of the whole fabric. I'm one thread. So I'll just do the work of my one thread.
Yeah, it's exactly that, and that thread, being that one thread, is like another thread being in a particular space at a particular time doesn't undermine another thread. It doesn't make it lesser or what. And I think that there's a line in the thing in a track called This Rhythm on Ancestors, where I say, they assassinate. I name all the some people that Malcolm assassinated, Bishop assassinated, Lumumba assassinated, so many assassinated, but not just the famous. Those are the ones we know. Who threw that first stone? Who broke that first bone? When they came to our communities, who stood up and said no? Who refused to roll? Who refused to sow seeds in cocoa fields and the propaganda? Refused to let them grow? Who was thrown into the ocean? Perpetual downward motion, sinking for eternity. Her soul can't come to terms with our unfulfilled maternity, right? And it's all of those countless ancestors. Like we know the famous people, and they are amazing, and what they do is amazing. But you know what? There'd be no Mandela, there'd be no Winnie Mandela, there'd be no none of them without the people front line taking them hits in the face. We'll never know their names. We'll never know the names of the people who died in Sharpsburg. Do you know what I mean? But we know Mandela, and hailing up Mandela is to hail up those people. But we have to sort of divorce the heroes and the names we know from the work that's got done.
That was
And I think that it's like I've become so much more comfortable in the recent years of just I'm very happy to be one of those people if that's what's meant for me. Do you know what I mean? That's not mean I'm not going to push and do as much as I can. But if future generations don't know my name and I'm cool, fam. Like I did what I came to do. I bounced. I'll be here in another form, in another way, And I think also like I'm learning. There's a brilliant book, All Incomplete by Fred Moten and Stefano Hani. They talk about like resistance to capitalism and resistance to this, they call it logistics, the science of whiteness, right? This constant need to constantly be being on and constantly be making the numbers up. And it's like, you know what? It might be better to not be building up certain platforms, algorithms. And I'm not saying not to promote your shit or not to get stuff out there, but it's like, I feel like so much of the work is about slowing these things down, slowing down their progress, not just constantly adding to it, right? And so if we can create our own space, like you're creating this podcast space, I know you're using their platforms, but the most important thing is what you're doing it and how you're doing it and creating and carving out a space for yourself, not how many plays you've got on Spotify, how many whatever else. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's like use their shit because it's there, innit? But don't prioritize their shit over ours.
Because the moment they clock the numbers, they're very, very interested. And sometimes the interest under capitalism means dilution of what you're doing. Suddenly it's like, oh, can you do that? Clearly people love what you do, but can you do less of it? So I said it before, like some of the really great quote unquote activists that we've seen throughout the years, the way that they almost become, for better, for want of a better term, like defanged, right, is to be offered deals. Here's your book deal. These things, because you're going to be like, okay, I get my message out to the world, but you're going to have to go through editors and editors and editors and editors. You're under a major publisher. Do you think that they're going to let you say the thing the way that you wanted to say that thing? No. And then by the time it gets to the masses, it's been diluted so much that what do you have left of it, And some people have still put out seminal work, of course. But I started to see the pattern, and again, distraction. You become distracted then with, they told you need to sell these number of books. You become distracted with your sales, and then you're not focusing on the work that initially got you there in the first place. So I'm always having to check myself. Like if somebody's like, oh, your numbers are great. Have you thought about pushing this and pushing that? No, not pushing. It is what it is. It's all right.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. I think. There was a time, I'm sure you would have thought like this at one point, but there was a time, it was almost like people would talk about, if you're especially from a militant certain way of doing things, if you're murdered for what you're doing, it's like it can be seen as like a badge of honor. And I think like there's legitimacy in that, right? Because, to be, I've had to reassess the way I feel about someone like Martin Luther King, for example. I spent a long time talking about how, I would think, I'd choose Malcolm and I'd choose Garvey, over that, doing things. But to put himself on the front line and as the figurehead to be shot at is such an immense thing. As I'm older now, I'm really starting to appreciate how much it would take to be that not figurehead, be that target, right?
Yes.
And so there's definitely legitimacy in that. But I think, again, capital and this society that we live in and those who are truly the enemy, right? They also are excellent at adapting their tactics, right?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think one thing that they do on their own soil, so somewhere like a Britain or an America, as opposed to when they send guerrillas to our countries to murder people and to
Yeah.
destabilize our lands, right? Because when they'll happily fight wars on
Yes.
our
Yes.
lands, right?
Yes.
What they
Yes.
do on their soil really well is if you can reward someone for for fighting against you and be like, it the potency is decreased if you're like, you're right.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
done. Do you know what I mean? Like
You sow that seed of distrust.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it's and also it's, you give them a job at a university and give them and let them teach.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they now become slightly more comfortable. And again, and I teach at a university. Do you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Maybe my softness has come from this. You know what I mean? I don't know, yeah. But like but it's like I know people who you get put into these spaces and then the distraction is in your face. Like Tony
Yes.
Morris, the distraction is now in your face. It's your day job. Do you know what I mean? That you're now, you're being paid a wage to, or you're given certain levels of success or whatever else
Yeah.
to doing what you're doing, and that's it it allows them to still not stop what
Change.
they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
you know.
it. Like it's you become absorbed into that organism. It's
Yeah.
funny because I've talked about this before, but I watched little snippets of some parts of the Meghan and Harry documentary, right? And there's a point where Meghan at the beginning, she's describing how useful she would have been to the organism of the monarchy. And I was like, girl, but interestingly, she understood that organism. She at least she was able to identify that is what it is, and is able to shape shift, and what it needs to do to survive is absorb power, and definitely absorb the power of people who are dissenting, who are, whatever we want to say, like radical, basically antagonists to its survival. It will absorb them. And
Yeah.
we are all aware of this. So when, I'm not talking in essence cack-handedly, like when I got my book deal, all of these things, I'm just like, in some parts, I'm going to be absorbed.
Right.
And there are other books I plan to write later on. Right, can you say them kind of things when you now are being marketed to a particular age group? You then start really thinking, okay, so how many different ways can I get this message across it without effing and blinding and without coming like directly through the front door? How else? So I feel like even in that regard, just like you, I'm having to adapt in real time and figuring out, keeping my authenticity, definitely keeping my integrity, doing what I feel called to do, but at the same time realizing, as that poem said, that white supremacy is not a shark. It's not the shark, it is the water. So in everything, I'm going to encounter it everywhere. So how am I going to navigate these very hostile waters?
Yeah, it's exactly that, and I think when you're doing it well, I think you're doing it great, and I think it's also um it's a part of surviving as well. And I don't mean that as in like we do it to survive. I mean as in like when you're not murdered in your 20s, like a Tupac. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you you have to continue the work, right? And
Yeah.
and and you're continuing the work in a way that is aligned with your capacity, your knowledge, the things you've gained in certain times and certain spaces, and also your needs. Do you know what I mean? And so, like it's all because if you think about it in sort of a slightly different way, success, however you describe success to be, do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Your successes with what you're doing can't also be the enemy. Do you know what I mean? Because then you're
Yes.
alone with nothing, without the means to look after your family and do these kind of things, And so it's like navigating that is a part of the works. Do you know what I mean? And I think um, it's so odd because the university I teach at, I try my best not to talk about it too much. I don't attach my name to it as much as I can because for whatever, right. But like I would never have gone and worked somewhere like that when I was younger. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the royal seal is on the thing, the names are on the,
Yeah.
I test that shit, but
Mm.
I'm in that space saying that I detest that shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but when like, because I would have been like, the house Negro, field Negro kind of
Mm.
vibes, you know what I mean? But what people don't know about what Malcolm said about that is he later went back and revised his point and was like, the house, people in the house were vital for taking resources out, for information, for intel, for all these kinds of things. So it's like, as much as I maybe would like to see myself as a field person, I've been a field person, I've been brought into the house, I have a choice now. Do I become that yes massa, no massa, I love the house, the massa person, or do I become the person inside who can channel out some shit? Do you know what I mean? And keep fighting the fight, you know, because what's the option also, like, and again, to take that like analogy as far as possible, is if you refuse to go into the house, they'll shoot you, fam.
Yeah.
So like, yo, you're bringing me in here to placate me. If my choice is to be placated and keep doing what I can do, or be left out in the cold, you know, strapped up against the barn door and beaten down and murdered, like, yo, like, strategy.
Strategy.
This isn't now. This isn't just here and now. This is long term. So if you can have the influence that you've gained through doing what you're doing, through getting the book deal to certain time, you are the only person most of the time that I see on any kind of mainstream media talking talk that I can just be like, I can just repeat. I can just repost you. I ain't got to make a video about this because I can just repost you. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And so someone has to do that job, because without you, no one's doing that job.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, like, I actively do not speak about Meghan and Harry because I don't want anything to do with them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I see why you do talk about it, because if you don't talk about it in the way you talk about it, there's just the rest of them talking.
Yeah, I'm making it and romanticizing it. It's like, it's not romantic, guys. Like, come on, like, understand how this also is a distraction. You focusing on the individual kind of spats that they're having. Look at the power, the way that the monarchy wants to keep power. It wants to keep relevance. So let everybody go and be irrelevant over there together. Like, go and do it over there. You know, and also that should show, like, if they couldn't even allow this very, very willing participant in because of their racism, they couldn't allow this person in for whatever reason or motivations she said she had. They weren't even allowing that. They weren't allowing her. They're beyond saving. For whatever reason you might want to save them, like, let it go, you know? So and so sometimes seemingly quote unquote trivial conversations I like intercepting, because it's just like, this isn't trivial at all, because look how this links to this. Abolish the monarchy. Because then I think that when we're talking about racism in the UK, we talked about, full circle, we were talking about the working class white people earlier, they only understand this structure, this pyramid scheme, this scam. They only understand it in one way. You pull away the monarchy, you take them off, and suddenly the UK, Britain's going to have an identity crisis, because suddenly, wait, I don't have to answer to someone that's just taking my money, taking my land, and telling me I should pay them to build on the land. Like, what? Everything starts to shift, and then actually we do have more of a means to enter their psyche and introduce them to a new reality, to what has actually been the reality that they were denied.
Yeah, exactly that. And like you said, the imagination is then allowed to come back alive.
Yes.
Right? And imagine what a world might be for working class white people and middle class white people.
Yes.
Them ones, like, when enough of their money ain't going to this family who teethed all our shit. You know what I mean? Like,
there we go.
That's a conversation that we can't even have for as long as
while they're there, we can't have the conversation. They stole shit from us. They stole all the things from us, but they're stealing from you lot too. They're thieves. They're actual thieves.
My man is rolling around in a golden carriage. Over potholes that they say they can't afford to fill. Fam, people are, and again, I like the pervasiveness of white supremacy and racism. Like, I remember years ago watching this documentary about a woman who, she was at rock bottom, fam, and it's like, I don't want to, like, I'm not saying this to belittle anybody. Like, she's a drug user. She was a child of the system. She had been abused by this country. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And she had lost everything. and she was living in a car park, and her children had been taken from her, and she was still trying to evoke this feeling we're talking about. And she said, from a really beautiful place, I've got to try and be positive. They've stuck a camera in her face as well. Bear in mind that again, for TV, they
Wow.
stuck a camera in this woman's face and been like, how do you feel? And she's like, I'm just trying to be grateful. At least I'm not inside no more. And things could be worse. I could be starving in Africa, right?
Oh,
And it's this mentality, right, that the monarchy endows people with, right, in this country,
yes.
that no matter what, it could be worse. It could be African. Do you know them ones? Like it's this. That's the problem, right?
Yes.
Because at least they've got this thing to hold on to. Whereas that
Yes.
holding on to that thing is stopping all else from actually improving. Because
Yes.
you know what? As much as I've appreciate that situation and that sentiment and people in that situation, you should be in a better place,
You should.
right?
We
Your
all
country
should.
should be taking care of you.
Yes.
They should not be putting you in a system as a child that leaves you in this place.
Mm.
They have more than enough to be able to take care of you if they weren't spending that on gold carriages and fucking whatever else has been done with this
Exactly.
thing. You get me? And so, like you said, what seemingly, and it's not trivial. Do you know what I mean? The fight that you're fighting in that sphere is necessary, because if you achieve what the sentiment of what you're trying to achieve is achieved, the name of the institution I teach at will have to change,
We'll
because
have
that
to.
institution won't
Yeah.
exist no more, right? And therefore, when they're coming to all the students and being like, "Oh, there's an opportunity here to create artwork for this this thing, for this farce," do you know them ones? People ain't gonna be jumping at it, and I ain't have to be there going, "Why you want to make work for them?
Why do you
You
want
know them
to?
ones?
Why
Why do
do
you
you
want?"
want
And
to?
so it's all of this. It's all into that interconnected, that fabric.
Yeah.
It's not just about reverence of being. It's about acknowledgement of what can be done when we acknowledge our unity and our oneness. You know
Yes.
what I mean? When we see the interconnectedness of our being as something that needs to be fixed up, and not just what do I get from this? What am
Yeah.
I losing? What
Yeah.
am I else? Right? We have the opportunity for conversations like that to have longer lasting, real world consequences and implementation.
Amen.
And that's what makes them so important. It's huge.
I love
The
that.
the going back to that book again, in All Incomplete, they talk about how it's wild actually, because before I started reading it, I'd read bits of it on picket lines and in other spaces, and
Mm.
I was like, I need to read this thing cover to cover properly. I'd spoken with the authors. They came in and gave a brilliant talk in one of the spaces I occupy, and I've been getting to this point of thinking that, like, they constantly talk. We talk about how they dehumanized us, right?
Mm-mm.
And how we have been, and part of white supremacy is to dehumanize us. I've
Mm.
started to get to this point where we talk going back to talking about revenge, right? I don't see how it's possible to do what has been done to us as a people and still maintain your humanity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think the people who have actually been dehumanized is the enemy, not us.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Do you know
agree
what I
with
mean?
you.
They've attempted to dehumanize us and all this other stuff, but they've had to kill that part of themselves, right? And again, you have to also always acknowledge, when we talk about indigenous people, there are indigenous people to this land,
Yes.
right? There are indigenous people to Europe. There are indigenous all to, right? They were who was killed first. Do you know
Yes.
what I mean? They were who were colonized first, right? And
Mm.
then they set about getting the rest of us, right?
Yeah.
And so those who are in charge of that mission, right? In All Incomplete, they talk about the subject. In philosophy, they're constantly talking about the subject and the object and the subject and the
Yeah.
subject. Rah, 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 rah. The first subjugation was them doing it to themselves.
Yeah.
To put themselves into a position where they say, I am a land owning, self owning, world owning conqueror.
Yeah.
You have to dehumanize yourself to do
True.
that, and
Yeah.
then go about doing it trying to do it to everyone else. And what we have just been doing all the way through is not allowing them to dehumanize us too,
Amen.
right?
Yeah.
And so, with kind of bringing it back to the project, like, what I've had to learn is that being constantly drawn into a battle, we're fighting this battle, but to constantly be in a place of fighting and at the behest of my own well-being
Yes.
is also being drawn into a fight that I don't have to constantly fight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If one thing that they tried to take from us when they tried to dehumanize us, and are trying to take from us as they are trying to dehumanize us, is happiness, a proper life, purpose, enjoyment, right?
Peace. Yeah.
Peace, right? If you can achieve those things, if we can achieve those things in life, we've already won one battle.
Well, that's
Right.
it.
So that's why the project at the moment is split. It's part one and part two. Part one was very much about, the fight in the fight and coming up with solutions. Right. But part two was like, I need to make this point and stress this point to people that it's okay to be happy. It's okay
Yes.
to feel joy. It's
Who are we
okay.
beyond the struggle? Who are we
Right.
beyond
Love.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Carving out a life, spending time with people. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
these things, it's not just like that's the result of the fight. That is a part of the that's a part
That
of the
is the
fight
act of
because
liberation.
that's
That's
what
the
they're trying
act
to
of
deny us of.
liberation. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
They denied this to our ancestors, and even then, throughout the greatest of the horrors. I have to shout out my brothers Fubu Nation for the piece that they did in part one, the choreography when we spoke. Like it was intimacy on a slave ship, fam.
Yeah.
Really, like we need to really let that sit in. That when we were in the worst spaces, there would have been someone holding someone else's hand, like it's okay,
Yeah.
we're going to get through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know them ones? Like there was someone stroking someone's head and being like, you're all right, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? There was love there, there was care there was intimacy, there was beauty in
Yeah.
even the worst of the worst of the worst. Throughout
Yeah.
plantation, throughout colonization, throughout everything, in
Yeah.
the camps, on all of these things, we have found spaces to demonstrate the love and care that we have for each other. And so that thing is it can't be undermined. It can't be said
Yeah.
loud. That is deeply, deeply important. It's not
Yeah.
just rising up with guns and shooting people and fighting back. That is also massively important. Do you know what I mean? It's not just, shouting people down when we need to and disarming them.
Yeah.
Like that need to keep that fire of love and care and reverence and beauty and intimacy. It's everything.
I love that. I love that because that is it. That is it. There's nothing I can say that follows from that hasn't been said. It is everything. That literally is it. So thank you. Thank you so much because I can't wait for the listeners to hear this conversation or to watch this conversation because I'll put it on YouTube as well because it's exactly, like I said to you, the line that stuck out to me, like conversation is action. Like this is literally what we've done here, like shown we've gone everywhere and still came back to knowing that in essence, love, intimacy, care, beauty, that is everything. That is the whole reason we're doing any of this. That's the whole reason any of this is even going to be worth it at the end of the day. Yeah. And to hold on to that is the real value in such a wildly capitalistic society. that is the thing that they can't commodify and take away from us because it's the thing that's kept us through so many centuries of fuckery. Yeah. So
I know they'll try. They will try
constantly.
We just have to just keep hold of it and keep fighting back, and they'll try and take as much as they can. We just got to hold on to as much as I can and take as much as we can and take it back when we can. And that's the purpose of the works, and that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what you're trying to do, and that's what we are doing as a people. And I think if I'm going, one thing I always really want to stress as well. Like there was a time when someone would say to me like, do you think it's possible to see actual change? And I would be like, because there is that I spent a long time living in that kind of rawness, right? Of that, like, of just like the world, and I think it comes out of this love. My parents raised me in such a way that they didn't, to the extent that any family can, there's always effects that, family life has on people, right? But like, I was raised in a very loving home. I was raised with very loving parents. Like they had their issues. We all have our issues, things have happened, whatever. But like, when I learned the true face of the world is also horrible. Do you know what I mean? There's so much horrible things happening in the world, right? And I felt like for such a long time, I lived in a state of having to be like, I need to never look away. Never look away from that because if you look away, you're paving over things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's only so long you can just keep. You have to blink for the very least.
Yes, you have to blink. You have to sleep. Bloody hell, And
and at some point, like it got too much. And I was in one interview, and the woman says to me, like we're talking about all the stuff all the politics or everything. And she was like, what makes you happy? And I couldn't answer for about 10 minutes. I was like, and I think she might have cut it out of the actual interview, but I was there for time, just like, rah, like, I don't know. That's a problem. I was 25 years old. That's a problem. Do you know what I mean? I can't, and eventually I was like, oh, I like to travel and I like to spend time with people who I care about, and you know, them ones. But it was just like, yo, something needs to change. And so like I blinked and I had to reimagine these things. And then I landed at this point now where it's like, yeah, I acknowledge them as exactly the same thing. You know, they're exactly the same thing. Is acknowledging the hideousness of the world and wanting to do something about it. It's also equally important, and it is the same act of love and reverence and fight to look at the beauty in the world and share that with people and say that love is central to that. Intimacy is important. Beauty is important. Whatever that is, you know, the ugly can also be beautiful. That rawness can also be beautiful, but because they're the same thing.
Yeah,
they're the same thing. It's all consistent.
That we spoke about.
Yeah.
Thank you. And where can the people then find you?
The best thing on my website, apexzero.co.uk.
Yes.
Still got that UK in there, which I haven't got around to taking it out.
I moved to .com like so early. I was just like,
I don't know. Yeah, but it served the purpose at a time, and that's the only one I could afford. I still ain't got around to fixing it up. Yeah, but APEXZERO will spell out apexzero.co.uk, and then all the other stuff is kind of from there. And just I've tried to make it so it's like available on as many platforms as possible, because again, I'm not trying to like centralize it to just have one set of nice numbers. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you could probably just type it into most search engines. If you type in APEXZERO Drummer Warrior Storyteller, you'll find something, and then you can kind of have your own journey of how you pick these things up.
But yeah, I would recommend, like I did, like definitely go on Apex's website and get involved, and you can watch the videos. Recommended that you watch it in 4K, watch the videos and really, and the photography, my God, as well, especially across the Amazon. Like, take your time, like immerse yourself in that world. It's beautiful. So thank you so much for joining me and chatting with me. It's really enriched me. So thank you.
I'm like I said, I'm honored to be here, fam. Like it's such a beautiful space that you're creating, and it's such important work that you're doing. And yeah, like I said, it's wonderful to be asked to come back and reopen that conversation we had, because like I said, I walk away from conversations with you feeling nourished too, and feeling empowered and emboldened. And it's like I know you're doing that for a lot of people, so just keep doing the works, man.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, much love.
So I hope that you enjoyed that chat with multidisciplinary artist APEXZERO and myself. 2 slaps on your chest, Apex. Like, coming to some real realizations about who you are, what you've done, and what you can do better going forward. This is why I'm always talking about being a dickhead in recovery. And, you know, some people have felt, oh, the word dickhead is on those affirmation cards. But if you understanding the real essence of these cards will move you forward in ways that you wouldn't and couldn't have imagined. So thank you, Apex, for being a guest, for Share Your Magnificence. Now we move on to So You Mad. So You Mad this week. Interesting things, Agwan. My milkshake brings all the bills to the yard. Bill Murray, Kelis, really? I mean, I get it. Like, the older guys are really doing bits at the moment, but you're 43, he's 72. He's 72. He's 72. So I don't know, but they wrote here Ghost Luster. Whew. Hollywood superstar Bill Murray has struck up an unlikely romance with milkshake singer Kelis, who is almost 30 years his junior. I mean, some people are 19 years other people's juniors. You just don't know. Like, you know, you see how it goes. But I always say, like, let everybody be over the age of 30, at least, to begin with. Even over the age of 32, really, to begin with, before we start looking at these gaps, okay? The Ghostbusters actor 72 watched the mum of 3, 43, perform from the side of the stage in London last weekend, having also been spotted at her other recent shows. They could just be friends, though. They could just be friends. And, you know, like, I feel like as a woman, I can only speak for myself, really. Let me not say as a woman. I feel like there are older people from way back that you're just like, you know what? Even though they are very much in their old age, they could still get it. So I understand why people date Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. Like, I see it. I see it. Small. And Bill Murray, yeah, they put a picture of him here from when he was in Ghostbusters. He was a cutie. Sources say the pair were also together at the same hotel and have been getting close for a while after first meeting in their native US. They have reportedly bonded since Kelis' second husband died in... that was really sad, that story about her second husband dying. Long life to you, Bill. Long life to you, Bill, is what I say going forward with this. Yes. Oh, and it was March last year. While Bill's estranged wife passed away in 2021. So they might not even be like doing anything. They might not. They might just be consoling each other for what they've experienced in terms of a loss of that magnitude. If they are doing something, I'm not judging that either way. Like, do yourselves, like, whatever. Ghostbusters, like, no, do yourselves. That's fine. But what I'm saying is that sometimes not every interaction is like romantic in that way. Sometimes you find solace in the most random places, and I keep forgetting that it was just last year. God damn. Kelis, big up yourself, man. Like, she's been through a lot. And, you know, from Nas to Bill, you know, live your life. I like that she doesn't limit herself in any way. She's got her farm, she cooks her food, she makes her products. Like, do you know? You know, when she said my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, I didn't know that it was going to be a farmyard, a barnyard, but, you know, I'm with it. I'm with it. I didn't know that she literally meant milk, you know, that it would be made right there on site. But I'm with you, girl. I'm with you. Father of 6, Bill, was pictured during Kelis' set at the Mighty Hoopla Festival in Brockwell Park, South London. The pair also posed for a cozy snap backstage. A friend said they've met up in the States before, which got people in the industry talking, and now are meeting up in London while they're both here. They've clearly hit it off. These friends that talk, God forbid I have a friend that will just be talking like this. Like, I'll tear off your lips. They were both seen at the same hotel, and he's been to watch her perform several times before he went to Mighty Hoopla. But they've also both shared relatively recent bereavements and have that common bond between them. That's what I said. That's what I said. Whatever it is that has brought them together, and however unlikely it seems that they are both single and are having fun despite the fairly big age gap. I didn't even know my foot was really up here like that. Look how I was holding my foot. God, Kelechi, have some decorum. Yeah, do you? Like I said, he's currently filming a sequel to the classic Ghostbusters franchise in London, which sees him reprise his role as Peter Venkman. Okay. Oh God. Off screen, his second wife, Jennifer Butler, accused him of trigger warning, domestic abuse and sex, marijuana and alcohol addictions, as well as infidelity during their marriage. The costume designer filed for divorce in 2008, but the pair are understood to have remained in touch before her death in 2021. Meanwhile, New York-born Kelis accused her first husband, hip-hop mogul Nas, of physically and mentally abusing her throughout their 5-year marriage. She filed for divorce in 2009. I'd like to see their birth charts, because it seems like they're doing things, or things are the same energies kind of around them at the same time, even though there's such a massive age gap. She filed for divorce in 2009 while she was 7 months pregnant with their son. Kelis later explained it was really dark. There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of physical and mental abuse. And it just got to the point where God is so good, because being pregnant, I probably would have stayed longer had I not been pregnant. Because I really did love him and we were married. Her second husband, Mike Mora, died of stomach cancer last year, aged 37. That's really sad. Yeah, that's really sad. I just want, you know, whatever age people find their things, I just want people to experience love. You know, that's my thing. So if there's a, you know, however decades long gap between you lot, if you rock with each other and it's healthy and you help each other to elevate in this lifetime, do you. But you know who's not elevating? In fact, who's descending possibly into hell? Boris Johnson, yeah. Boris Johnson has resigned as MP in the midst of Partygate. He's resigned, and it just says a lot about the nature of this country, as far as I'm concerned, that somebody would have been so corrupt, so shit, so incompetent during their time as prime minister, and so duplicitous during their time as prime minister, that they actually get given the opportunity to resign. Well, he knew they were probably gonna make him stand down or something as a result of the findings of the investigation into Partygate. So he resigned, but I'm just pissed off that he gets to resign, keep his salary that he would have got, keep his pensions, and essentially not have his name tarnished. And that's very, very wild to me. It says here, Boris Johnson is standing down, well, he now has, as immediately as Conservative MP after an investigation into Partygate scandal found he misled Parliament and recommended a lengthy suspension from the House of Commons. The former Prime Minister angrily accused the investigation of trying to drive him out and claimed there was a witch hunt underway to take revenge for Brexit and ultimately to reverse the 2016 referendum result. In a bitter 1,000-word statement, he attacked Rishi Sunak's government, the same Rishi Sunak that allowed him to put through his fucking honours list, where he didn't even give Nadine Dorries, his long-time side chick, he didn't even give her small peerage. She's been seeing your penis and you couldn't give her peerage. Wow. I was going to do something then and I'm glad I didn't do it. I'm just very wayward. Blaming the current Prime Minister for rising taxes, not being conservative enough and failing to make the most of Brexit. Johnson hinted that he may try to make a return to politics, saying he was very sad to be leaving Parliament, at least for now. His departure from political life comes less than 4 years after he won an 80-seat political majority and 9 months after he stood down as Prime Minister after a police fine for breaking his own COVID rules. In his statement, Johnson hit out at political enemies for targeting him. My enemies are after me, is what he said. After he was shown the Privileges Committee findings against him earlier last week at this point. It is very sad to be leaving Parliament, at least for now, but above all, I am bewildered. I should read that as him.
It's very sad to be leaving Parliament, at least for now. But above all, I'm bewildered and appalled that I can be forced out anti-democratically by a committee chaired and managed by the Labour MP Harriet Harman with such egregious bias. Their purpose from the beginning has been to find me guilty, regardless of the facts. This is the very definition of a kangaroo court.
Shut up. I hope a kangaroo kicks you in your face. Shut up, Boris. Fuck off. Like, do you know how many people died and were isolated and lonely because of the way that you went about just mismanaging lockdown? Like, and then you're talking about a witch hunt. Philip Schofield the other week, witch hunt. Jeremy Clarkson, Piers Morgan, Donald Trump. All of you lot love to claim a witch hunt. Do you know who were actually hunted as witches? Women. Not you silly motherfuckers. It was actually women that were hunted because they dared to stand up against the status quo. So it was like, oh, let's drown them. Let's burn them. You've never experienced that. All of you are rich white men. You've never, ever experienced what a witch hunt actually is. So shut the fuck up. Yeah, all wild. But Carrie, girl, another child with this buffoon. Godspeed. And on top of that, Donald Trump, they're really dealing with him. My God, this was just a snippet of Pluto in Aquarius. Now Pluto's gone back into Capricorn for a little piece. It's retrograded back into Capricorn. Also, you just know it's going to be pressing on my Mars. But I'm ready. I'm a bad girl now. I'm ready. I've absorbed the lessons that Pluto wanted to teach me. I've experienced many deaths and rebirths. I'm super powered, baby. So let's go. Career-wise, I'm that girl. Donald Trump kept classified documents in shower and ballroom and faces 37 felony counts, unsealed indictment shows. An unsealed indictment alleges that the former president described a Pentagon plan of attack and shared a classified map related to military operation while keeping boxes of documents hidden at his Mar-a-Lago estate. The former president faces 37 felony counts related to retaining classified information, obstructing justice, and false statements. The indictment, which was made public on Friday, said Trump was personally involved in moving boxes to his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida and showed documents to others on at least 2 occasions. The charges accuse the president of risking some of the country's most sensitive security secrets. Details on the U.S. nuclear weapons programs, potential vulnerabilities of the U.S. and its allies, and U.S. plans for retaliatory military attacks were in some of the documents, the federal indictment said. Prosecutors said Trump showed another person a document from the Defense Department described as a plan of attack against another country. And there are pictures. I hope Jonathan can add these pictures. There are pictures of how he has kept these documents in the bathroom of this home. Why do you have chandeliers in that bathroom is what I want to know, because it's giving tacky. The indictment marks the first time in U.S. history that a former president faces criminal charges by the federal government he once oversaw. Trump faces the possibility of prison if convicted, with the charge of obstruction of justice carrying the highest penalty of up to 20 years. Charged alongside Trump was his aide, Walt Nauta, who was seen on a CCTV camera removing boxes at the Mar-a-Lago estate. Nauta faces 6 charges, including conspiracy to obstruct, withholding a document or record, and scheme to conceal, according to the federal indictment. He told the FBI that he did not know how some of the documents ended up at the Mar-a-Lago estate, when in fact he had been involved in moving them from a storage room, the indictment states. I hope you get him. I hope you get him. I hope you get Donald, baby. I hope you get him. Deal with that orange bitch. Yes. Get him. Get him. Because, wow. Like, I think that somebody with lots and lots of power, more power than Trump could ever dream to have, really had him wound around their finger. They really had him under their thumb. When they were like, when you're leaving, get all of these things. We are the only reason you were ever allowed to be president. Make sure you get those things, and when we need them, you will hand them over. Okay? And he did that but then on the flip side, even if there wasn't somebody powerful, like pulling his strings, because he is a puppet. He's just an ugly, horrible puppet. Even if there was nobody doing that, he would still have taken these things, because the businessman that he is, the ruthless bitch that he is, he would have definitely thought, oh, wow, what
I'm going to do is I'm going to sell this information to whoever asks for it. I'll sell it to whoever asks for it. Yeah.
And that's what he was really planning to do. He really thought he got away with it. You would have seen him not showering in that bathroom, or just not showering at all, but looking at all those boxes and going, ha, ha. You know that meme? Ha, ha, ha. Thinking he's gotten away with it, but prison, you are going to jail. You are going to jail. But he might escape. You know how these things be. Why is all my news really about Americans this week? No, I mean, I cuss Boris, but Boris is also an American citizen, isn't he? He was born in America. So it feels like I've just talked about lots of Americans. Anyway, let's move to Straw of the Week, aka Suck Your Mum. My first, my No, I haven't got time. So I'll do one straw of the week. Let's see how I go. So the straw of the week goes out to this woman who killed... a black mother of 4 was shot and killed by a neighbor. Her family wants the woman who shot her arrested. A mother of 4 was shot and killed in Florida following a long-time feud with a neighbor, a white woman, who had complained about the victim's children playing outside. Authorities and a family attorney said. Deputies responded to a trespassing call Friday night and found one woman suffering from a gunshot wound. Marion County, Florida, Sheriff Billy Woods said in a Monday news conference. The victim was identified by authorities as Ajike A.J. Owens. She was 35. The shooter, also a woman, engaged with Owen's children and threw a pair of skates, hitting the children, the sheriff said. A witness told the police there had been a dispute over a child's electronic tablet device prior to the shooter throwing the skates at the children, according to an incident report from the sheriff's office. Following that interaction, one of the children went back inside their home and told their mother, who went to the neighbor's home to confront the lady, the sheriff said. According to the shooter, there was a lot of aggressiveness from both sides. So, of course, the white woman would say there was a lot of aggressiveness from both sides because she's being a white woman. As well as threats being made, and Owens was ultimately shot through the door, Wood said. Witnesses told authorities Owens went to the shooter's home and knocked on the door before she was shot, according to the incident report. So she knocked on the door. I don't see what was aggressive about that, because the thing is, let me tell you, if you dash skates at my child, right, I'm not knocking on your door. I'm tearing the door off the fucking hinges. Are you nuts? So that's aggressiveness. On one side, my G, my side. But she knocked on the door after you dashed a skate at her child. Woo. Owens was later pronounced dead at a hospital, authorities said. The woman who fired at Owens has been cooperating with law enforcement. Of course she has. She's a white woman. The sheriff added no arrest has been made in the case. So she shoots a woman dead, dashes a skate at one of the women, that before she shoots the woman dead, she dashes skates at the woman's children, and she's fine. She's not being arrested. Am I understanding that? That's what we're doing today, in another day ending in Y, in this white supremacist society. Cool. Authorities have not named the shooter or shared any identifying information, but civil rights attorney Ben Crump, one of the attorneys representing the family, identified her as a white woman. According to a news release from his office on Monday, the incident report also described the shooter as a 58-year-old white woman. So she's not old. She's very aware of what she was doing. In a separate news conference held by Owen's family attorneys, the victim's mother said the neighbor who shot the daughter had called the family, including the children, racial slurs. Of course she has. The neighbor's door never opened when Owens, who was black, tried to confront her, and she was shot through the door. Pamela Diaz, the victim's mother, said, "My daughter, my grandchildren's mother, was shot and killed with her 9-year-old son standing next to her. She had no weapon. She posed no imminent threat to anyone," Diaz said. "I'm asking for justice," she added, "justice for my daughter." And she goes on to say, "It is asinine when they try to justify this unjustifiable killing of this mother of 4 who was killed in front of her children." Oh, that's what Crump said. "It is heartbreaking on every level." A verified GoFundMe page to support Owen's family has raised more than $30,000 by Monday night. Like, rest in peace, Ajike. Like, I'm so sorry that this raggedy bitch could get away with doing such. And I hope she doesn't get away with it, is the thing. I hope she doesn't. Like, the gun laws at some point, we're going to have to address them in America, because this is disgraceful and this is disgusting. But for those who might be wondering, and I'm sure Jonathan can add her image to this video. Her name is Suzanne Lorick, right? Suzanne Lorick, you can't burn in hell, bitch. You stupid, silly bitch. I hope that something is done. One way or another, I hope that something is done, because you are very, very trigger happy and somebody needs to slap you up. I'm not inciting anything. Actually. I'm just saying that if somebody were to slap you up, I would understand. If somebody were to thump you in your face and drag those harsh highlights off your scalp, I would definitely understand. Suck your mum for eternity, you prick. You can't, you evil bitch. Well, that's it. I feel like I've covered everything. I don't want this to be like a super duper long episode. I was going to cuss Dr. Umar for what he said about the LGBTQ plus community. But you know what? You're going to say many more ridiculous and harmful things, and I'm going to get you then. I'm definitely going to get you then. Dr. Umar isn't smart. Stop making him feel like he is. And I'm not even going to call him Dr. Umar. Umar, or whatever your other name is, like, you're a bitch. Stop it. Be content. Like, somebody who decided to marry 2 wives, you've got 2 pom-poms to lick. Go and deal with that. And stay out of everybody else's business. But that's me. You know, I'm done. I'm out. You have been listening / watching SYM. Also, let me start that again. I have been Kelechi Okafor, and this has been SYM. Officially known as Say Your Mind, unofficially known as What? That's right, Suck Your Mum. Don't forget that you can watch the video of this podcast on YouTube. It's a whole different vibe because there's memes galore and it's just funny as fuck. And or if you can't watch, you can always listen. Remember to like and leave reviews, whether you're listening or whether you're watching. Remember to leave reviews, and definitely remember to get your book, pre-order my book, and get your tickets to the live show. That's it. I'm out. Peace.
It's the Benz Brunani womanist, baby boys, baby girls, you need to hear this. Sit down, receive this realness. Make sure your cup's ready for the tea, we are go sip it, yo. Hard time scrolling for your long throats. You might learn something you never know. Collect you fine, and she's one of a kind. Don't say you're mine, say you're mine.